Hey guys, so obviously this is not my usual day of posting. So is the book that I'm going to be talking about today an ARC that I received? Yes, thank you to Edelweiss and the publisher. Is this book already out? Also yes. It has just been so hard for me to get wrapped around reading again. There's been a lot of personal stuff going on in my life. So, you know, I figured that since I definitely had things to say about this book, that even though, you know, it was a few days late, not my regular posting day, like whatever, I would get this out to you guys and tell you what I think, because I have a lot of thoughts, but I really did like this book, and that makes a good review, I think. I hope. I don't know. I'm rusty, but we're gonna get into it. So the book in question that I am going to be talking to you about today is called The Best I Never Had by Amy Buchanan. Now, according to the internet, this is not her first book. However, I have never read anything else by Amy Buchanan, so this is my first introduction to this author with their latest book, which seems to be about book 4 or 5 for them. The Best I Never Had has a very interesting premise, which is why I requested the ARC to begin with, despite not knowing anything about the author. And it's kind of like the aftermath of a fake dating situation. So let me explain. Prior to this book starting, and while you will get some description of what happened, there's no flashbacks or anything. This is like a single timeline situation. But prior to this book starting, you have Thea and Owen. And Thea is a down on her luck former foster kid who, you know, after graduating high school and just kind of couldn't really get her feet under her, wasn't really sure what she wanted to do except for one thing, and that was take care of her sister Addie. And so she basically stayed close to her. She had aged out of the system about 6 years prior to her sister. Her sister was adopted. More on that later. So basically Thea's entire goal in life has just been to stay near where her sister is and make sure that her sister's life is as best as it could possibly be, as stable as it could possibly be, and kind of throwing her own needs under the bus at the same time. And so she got this offer from her friend Vaughn, and she's like, hey, this former college friend of mine wants someone to play his fake girlfriend at his family's winery in the Blue Ridge Mountains, because his mom is playing matchmaker and totally trying to set him up. And so he's a great guy, he won't try to pull anything funny, and you can make some money out of this. And so Thea's like, yeah, totally. And that's how she and Owen meet for the first time. They go through a week or so of fake dating at Owen's cousin's wedding at this place in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And they really hit it off. They have a great time together, but when Owen is driving Thea back to the airport, she deletes her number from his phone. Owen takes the hint that even though he really felt like this might have been the beginning of something, it's not something that Thea wanted to pursue. But in the 3 years since this event, he has not been able to stop thinking about her. So like I said, this book actually begins 3 years later after all of that has happened a while ago. And Thea is at work at her waitressing job when her sister shows up and says, hey, I'm engaged to this guy that I've been dating for 3 months. And Thea, needless to say, is just like, I'm sorry, Addie, what? She has never met Addie's boyfriend, or now fiance. He's technically her boss, or they work at the same place. Thea is just very concerned about this. But she's trying to be the big, supportive big sister. Like I said, she tries to never let Addie see that she's struggling or thinking about this. And Addie's like, oh, and by the way, his family's winery up in the Blue Ridge Mountains is where we're gonna have the wedding, and it's gonna be in a month. So immediately warning bells go off in Thea's head, and she's like, what's this guy's name? Because again, she's never met him, right? And Addie goes, oh, his name is Harrison Hayes. And Thea's like, okay, then that person can't be related to the guy that I fake dated at a very similar situation in the Blue Ridge Mountains, because Owen had told her, or she believed that Owen's last name was Ellis. Well, Of course, when a month later, Thea shows up at this winery in the Blue Ridge Mountains to help Addie have the wedding of her dreams very last minute, it is Owen's family. Harrison is Owen's younger brother. The Ellis family does kind of own this winery because it's the family of Owen's mom. So of course they're using that maiden name. And so cue the immediate awkward, because Addie, again, former foster kid, really, really wants to fit in with this new family. All she's ever wanted, quite like Thea, is to have a stable, like, family life that they never really had. And immediately this just like makes the whole situation weird. Owen's family, when they met Thea 3 years ago, really loved her. Addie is now having a hard time kind of getting to know these people. And of course, Thea and Owen are still really attracted to each other. So Thea and Owen have a choice here. They can either continue with the ruse, which they had told the whole family that they had broken up and that Owen was like completely distraught about this. Thea had broken up with him, and continue lying to everyone, or they can come clean. And Thea just believes that that is going to basically put a whole, like, make Owen's mom hate her sister. So she's not willing to come clean, so they just continue to pretend that they're exes. But again, still really attracted to each other. So there's all this stress going on, right? There's Thea and Owen having their thing. Thea and Addie kind of trying to make this work as sisters who really don't communicate very well. Owen has a very large extended family who are all there for this wedding, and I really liked how many of them, despite there being a large cast of characters, really had great personalities, and like you were like, oh yeah, that one, and like they really felt like full humans, not like sometimes in these books where they get sent to a family wedding and you just kind of know their names and they're kind of pasted on to like very one-dimensional characters who are kind of wandering around in the background. There's also like a lot of really interesting discussion in this about like family trauma and what that means. Obviously, like I mentioned, there's a whole foster care situation. Thea truly believes that she ruined Addie's life because they were placed together in all these foster homes and never adopted until Thea aged out of the system. Addie went back to their first set of foster parents, and they immediately adopted her. So Thea is like, oh, if I hadn't been there, then her life would have been better. Their mother died when they were very young of a drug overdose, but Thea's the only one who really has memories of her. Addie doesn't have any of those memories. But on the flip side, you have Owen, whose father died of cancer when he was around 12, and his mother made it her mission in life to have Owen succeed his father and basically become his father at the head of their family business. And so Owen, in his own way, just like Thea, despite being very different circumstances, was parentified very early. He felt like he had to take care of his little brother, Harrison, had to always be the one that was relied upon. But they've taken this two very different ways, wherein Owen has become like the sturdiest, most dependable, just like have no emotions, like kind of like eldest situation. And Thea has just kind of decided that her purpose in life is to defend Addie at all costs. And like, she's not the dependable one because she's always there when Addie needs her. She doesn't really have a career of her own because she wanted to stay where Addie was. So it's like two people in like different circumstances that are very emotionally similar, and yet that they reacted very differently too. And it's like such great conversations that they have when they kind of realize those similarities and yet differences with each other. Because Owen's kind of like, well, my life was way more privileged than yours, so obviously it's not the same. And Thea basically saying back to him, you're right, but also like trauma is trauma and family difficulties are family difficulties, and it's not like a competition. Because of all of this like family drama that's kind of going on, and you kind of get more of that where the cousins that are there, Owen's mom factors really strongly into this. You can kind of get the sense that there are a lot of people coming out of very emotionally difficult situations and really not handling it well. Like I've seen some comments that people are like, oh, well, Thea's just a really, really big self-sabotager. And like, I really didn't like that she was always beating herself up. And so I think one of the things about this is you kind of have to take not just our two main characters, Owen and Thea, but also the characters cycling around them is maybe a little bit more gray than you might see in like a typical romance novel, where sometimes it's really annoying how like shiny like the characters are, or like one of the main characters has like this one major character flaw, which is like magically fixed by the power of love or whatever. I really appreciated that. I just felt like even the bad behaviors or like gray behaviors that some of these characters had, that I understand could be annoying because they're repeated. Like, you understand where they have come from and why they do them, and why each of these characters kind of has to go on their own healing journey to kind of like believe that they can be loved, that they are worth love, that they can stand up for themselves. Because Thea and Owen, both in their own way, are doormats. And one of the best things about this story is seeing them realize that they can stand on their own with the support of each other. I will say that I think that all of it is resolved fairly well. Like, Owen's mom is extremely problematic, and she's not even fully redeemed in the end. Like, she's like still on her journey, which I love, because everyone's suddenly having a magical like end of their journey at a romance novel. Again, kind of annoying because life's not that easy. So I love that. I do think that Addie's character arc is not nearly as thought through or resolved in the way that the author seems to like say that it is at the end. So that's the one where I think that kind of falls down a little bit. She's definitely a little annoying. But again, I can see where it's coming from. But when you see how all the other characters in the story kind of move through a very logical like character evolution and growth, Addie kind of jumps around a little bit in a way that's not as smooth or logical. So I think the other characters having better arcs makes hers even more glaringly weird in comparison. Thea and Owen have great chemistry. Obviously, there is a lot of yearning in this book, and it never felt weird because I understood that they already had a history. So the fact that they kind of walked back into the same room and it was immediately like, bam, yearning, wasn't like I kind of get annoyed sometimes with like the love at first sight or like lust at first sight trope. Because, you know, Thea even walks back in wearing the dress that Owen bought her for that wedding 3 years ago. So, you know, there's immediate parallels, and they're both trying to be so good for their family and trying to do the right thing, but they are so into each other, and they're not just into each other because they find each other attractive. It is very clear so fast that they really do bring out that stronger version of each other, and that they stand up for each other where other people in their families aren't. And so it's like very much like I desperately wanted them to kiss immediately, and they spend a solid chunk of the book not doing that. I also don't want to say too much about the end of this book, but I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think there are some really interesting kind of twists, and some of it I've alluded to about some character arcs are not fully resolved. Like, you can still see that there are characters working through their stuff, which is great. And there are just some differences that are made at the end of this book that are, again, very similar to what all romance novels give us, which is like that X amount of years later, like, here's how their life is now, beautiful, happy ending. But this just felt a little bit fresher and more interesting because of some of the narrative and character choices that were made. So I loved that. So in the end, even if I did feel like not all of the character beats hit for me, and some of the characters really do have like annoying, like, oh my God, just be nice to yourself, stop it. You can see where it's coming from, except for Addie, who's a little bit clunkier. So it being like not like the aftermath of a fake dating trope, it was very like focused on family dynamics, and both of the characters had interesting stories and journeys to go on, both together and separate, which is a really big deal for me. The chemistry was great. So do I think it was the perfect book? No, but it was a really, really great book for me to read. I liked the different layers to it, and I would definitely recommend that you read it. If you are at all interested, obviously, so you can then form your own opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but like I said, this book is out now. So you can go to your local library or your local bookstore and make those decisions for yourself. I'm happy I read a book. That's where I'm at. Thanks, guys. Bye.